You're here because you're struggling with semen retention. And in this video, I'm going to help you identify and overcome the psychological and spiritual barriers that are preventing you from progressing on your semen retention journey and turning it into a lifestyle once and for all. That said, the first reason why you're struggling with semen retention is because you lack self-forgiveness. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, self-forgiveness is absolutely critical to your semen retention journey and your personal growth journey overall, because whenever you don't forgive yourself, whenever you neglect to forgive yourself for your mistakes, and in this particular context, your semen retention relapses, what ends up happening is you develop a negative self-perception. You develop a negative self-perception based on all of the guilt and the shame that you are carrying in your subconscious mind. Whenever you look in the mirror, you see the guilt and the shame of all of your prior mistakes. And as a result, you hold yourself to that identity and your actions become congruent, your behavior becomes congruent with the identity of yourself that you've established. Self-identity is everything. Self-identity is the primary driver, the primary motivating factor that influences all of your actions, or at the very least 95% of your actions, because most of the actions that you take, 95% at that, are directly influenced by your subconscious mind. So the way that you see yourself in your subconscious mind will determine the way that you act. And again, this is subconscious, so you're not consciously aware of this. You're not aware of the pattern, because you're not aware of how you see yourself. But what ends up happening is when you learn to forgive yourself, you free yourself of all of the guilt and the shame, and you give yourself permission to become a better version of yourself who is then capable of doing more. The only reason why you're struggling with semen retention is because you believe that you're the kind of person who struggles with semen retention. And so when you let go of the guilt and the shame, by the way, the reason why you see yourself as that kind of person is because you're carrying this guilt and this shame. You're living in the echo, you're living in the shadow of who you used to be. Whenever you let go of the guilt and the shame, you free yourself to be present to create a new future. But creating a new future starts with creating a new you. Now, the biggest barrier to self-forgiveness oftentimes is that people believe that forgiving themselves is the same thing as making excuses for their actions or enabling the behavioral patterns that have perpetuated the self-identity that they've established up to this point. But this cannot be further from the truth. This is a very, very big and very limiting misconception. What do I mean by that? Well, simply put, whenever you forgive yourself, you are also taking accountability for your actions. You're taking accountability for your actions. Accountability is the key to freedom. That is the key to freedom, which you will need to establish a new self-identity. You can't establish a new self-identity and cultivate a new life, cultivate a new, more authentic and more empowering character if you don't take accountability for your life. And when you forgive yourself, you're automatically taking accountability, because to forgive yourself insinuates that there's something to forgive yourself for. So by forgiving yourself, by making the conscious decision to forgive yourself for your actions in the past, including but not limited to your semen retention relapses, you give yourself permission to be free because you are taking accountability. Now, oftentimes, self-forgiveness is much easier said than done. It sounds good in the video when I'm just saying it to a camera, but when you actually try to apply it in your life, you might find it to be very, very difficult, exceedingly difficult. But if you can't forgive yourself for the actions that you've taken in the past, forgive yourself for feeling the way that you feel about having taken those actions. So in other words, if you can't forgive yourself and clear the source of the guilt and the shame, forgive yourself for holding on to the guilt and the shame. Forgive yourself where you can, however you can, but forgive yourself, because in forgiveness, there is accountability. There are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Self-forgiveness is absolutely critical to your semen retention journey. Now, on the topic of accountability, the next reason why you are struggling with semen retention, why you are hopelessly addicted to lust, is because you are lacking in accountability. You are not taking accountability, not just for your relapses, but for the situations that are causing them. I want you to really think about it for a second. Why did you relapse the last time you relapsed? What was the actual reason? Initially, you might think that your libido was just acting a certain kind of way and your hormones got the better of you. And while that could potentially be the case, it's probably not. More often than not, what I've noticed, at least in most young men, is that they succumb to their urges because they're trying to escape from something. They're trying to escape from a certain aspect or multiple aspects of their lives that they find to be unsatisfactory. Maybe you're in a very toxic home situation and you're trying to escape from that situation, not literally, but figuratively, by opening yourself up to that dopamine rush that PMO gives you. Maybe you just got out of a relationship. Maybe you got cheated on. Maybe you're going through some sort of physical issues. You have some sort of injury, some lingering injury that's preventing you from going to the gym or something of that nature. Maybe you're stressing about school or about your business or about your job. It could be anything. But the point is, you are trying to escape from something. And what you need to understand is that you are once again living in the echo of who you used to be. So in other words, the decisions that you made in the past are what have led you to the situation that you're currently in. Now, is that to say that everything in life is your fault? Absolutely not. You didn't get to choose which family you would be born into. You didn't get to choose whether your parents would be toxic or healthy and provide a supportive and liberating environment. But while you're not at fault for your life circumstances, you are solely responsible for changing them. You are responsible for getting yourself out of that home. You are responsible for building up your business. You are responsible for identifying certain red flags in women, in potential partners, that could ultimately become situations where you get cheated on or ghosted, flaked on, so on and so forth. You are responsible. And I know this is a very hard pill to swallow, but it's a necessary pill to swallow because once you swallow it, you see life for what it is. It's the sum and the product of your decisions. And while this might sound intimidating, it's actually extremely liberating because it also means, consequently, that the decisions that you make right now determine the destiny that you will inherit in the future. So if you don't like your current life circumstances, start making better decisions. Start making different decisions so that you can then manifest a different and better life in the future. That said, it's important that you also understand that although you are solely responsible for cultivating a better future for yourself, you need to stop putting so much pressure on yourself. That is the next reason why you're struggling with semen retention, is because you are putting too much pressure on yourself. What do I mean by that? Well, as a young man, you will experience immense amounts of pressure just from your very existence in your current state. I know this firsthand. Okay, I'm a young man myself. I know the pressure that you're going through. It's difficult, it's tough, and you're going to make mistakes, including but not limited to relapsing on semen retention. It's part of the journey. It's part of life. Failure is a part of the journey. It's a part of the process. But what you have to understand is that you can't allow those failures to define you. Because the moment that you allow those failures to define you, in other words, when you refuse to forgive yourself for making those mistakes, when you hold yourself to an impossible standard of perfection, you are perpetuating the self-identity of you being inadequate. And when you approach any and all situations from the standpoint of being an inadequate person, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to sabotage every situation, every opportunity that's presented to you. Why? Because it matches your self-identity. Stop putting that extra undue pressure on yourself. I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to you right now, because I put a lot of pressure on myself as well. and it's very toxic, it's very unhealthy, and it's something that I'm working on and working through every day, and I'd advise you to do the same thing. A really good frame shift for contextualizing your mistakes is to remember that slow progress is better than no progress. If you relapse on semen retention, you might feel like your whole day has gone to waste. Your whole day is ruined. But if you also, on that same day, went to the gym and worked out, you filmed a video for your YouTube channel that you're growing, you maybe put in a job application for a job that you want to work at, you, I don't know, cold approached a certain number of women. I don't necessarily recommend cold approaching, but the point is you did things that are conducive to fulfilling your goals. You still made progress. All you did was slow your progress down with that mishap or however many mishaps you had. But slow progress is better than no progress. If you make slow progress, you will still get to the destination. It will just take you longer. Whether you walk a mile, run a mile, drive a mile, or fly a mile, you're still going to get to the end of that mile. It just might take you longer. That said, a good way to measure this in an actual, somewhat quantifiable way is through what I like to call the weigh your day exercise. What do I mean by that? Well, if you relapse or if you just make any sort of mistake in general in your life, in your day-to-day routines, which, by the way, once again, you will because you're not perfect, what you can do is you can create a simple T-chart. On the left side, you will list out all of the positives from that day, and on the right side, you'll list out all of the negatives from that day. And you can very quickly see for yourself that the positives outweigh the negatives. And if they don't, immediately take action to create more positives. Now, this video is already getting pretty long, so I'm not going to elaborate any further on this topic. But what I will do is I want to give you a free gift. And that is the free, once again, free, no strings attached, no taxes, no shipping and handling, nothing, free PMO Relapse Recovery Guide ebook. It is a 15-minute read that is specifically designed to help young men like yourself leave lust in the dust in just 15 minutes. Meaning that if you click the link in the description, in 15 minutes, you can be well on your way to not only mastering your retention journey, but mastering your life as a whole, as a young man, and putting yourself in a position where you can get ahead of your peers, go from feeling behind your peers to getting ahead of them, all by making the decision which will cultivate a much more empowering destiny. And that decision is in your hands. Click the link in the description, get the free ebook before I come to my senses and start charging the money that it's actually worth.